Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
I think that. Okay, hey everybody, welcome to the Goud Crowd. I am your host, Goud. It's named after me. Okay, let's see what we got here. We have a kind of cool show today. We'll have at least 2 out of the 3 people running for mayor of Riverton are going to call in. I invited the third person, but I was only able to do it on email because I don't have his phone number. So we'll have both Tani McKay and Tish Baroker calling in. We also, and on that, municipal elections, those are tomorrow. So if you haven't voted, get out and vote. These are the primary elections. So typically, this happens in municipalities that are not doing ranked choice voting. I have to be honest with you, I actually don't even know if you can still do ranked choice voting in Utah. I can't remember. But if you have more than 2 candidates running for an office, you'll have a primary election. These are nonpartisan races, so the top 2 vote getters in this election will go on to the general election. So in Riverton, Trent Staggs is not running for re-election, and we have 3 people who are running to replace him. We have Tani McKay, Tish Baroker, and then the third guy I think is John Scott. I invited all 3 of them on. Tani and Tish have both said yes, and so we'll hear from them in a little while. Okay, then I wanted I thought we'll start with a few kind of more fun things before we hit it, because we'll talk today about the Stuart Adams situation with the special treatment for, I think we've now learned, his niece and some illegal sexual activity that happened. We'll also talk about the federalization of DC. As many of you know, I lived there for a long time, so I'm very familiar with DC, the crime there, and the politics of the city. It's a crazy place. It's like Salt Lake City, but maybe actually kind of worse. So I've been watching the Sex and the City reboot, and I think it's called And Just Like That. And so, since we're talking about elections, if anybody is planning to run for election, I recommend that you actually watch episodes 10 and 11 of season 3 of this show, because typically on TV shows, the characters that you like will always win elections, and you never get to see what it's like to lose an election. And they have in here a fantastic plot line where one of the characters runs for election. He's running for the city comptroller. And so they show him and his family going to what they think is going to be a victory party. They get in the elevator. His son is like, "Dad, you're up by 5 points in the polls. That's beyond the margin of error." They're all excited about it, though. His mom says, I think their last name is Wexler. Like, Wexlers always win. We never lose. The elevator doors close. And then when they reopen, he lost the race. And you see his reaction. And then, you see the comments that people make. But what's really interesting is to see how the candidate responds, because if you haven't actually been through an election loss, it's something worth thinking about. A lot of times when you jump into a race, you obviously always jump in to win and because you want to improve things, but you don't recognize that even just doing that really is a huge achievement. And so if you end up losing at the end of the day, you still have accomplished a lot. And I think this was a great example of that. Because when he loses, his mom actually says to him, "Why would you ever run for office if you weren't guaranteed to win?" Right? And I find that to be crazy because it's always, I feel like it's about the man in the arena, and so you really have to put yourself out there. We need people to do that, and someone's always going to lose if there's more than one person running for election. But what I learned when I lost the first time, because the county clerk's race was big. So when I lost that, I remember afterwards, I was like, I didn't expect to win because I got just hammered so hard. And it was very clear that I was a massive target for both Democrats and establishment Republicans. But it's still disappointing. And then you kind of have to deal with the after effects. Like people will come up to you, it's like, hey, good job, you ran a good race. It's too bad you lost. And how you respond to that depends on the person. This is worth a watch. Again, if you're going to run for election, this will kind of give you a sense of what that is like. Okay. The next thing I want to show you guys is something called the gay wage gap. This kind of made me laugh. So here we go. And we talk a lot here on the show about the difference between like the LGB, so your lesbians, gays, and bisexuals, versus the TQIA plus minus FU, whatever, the rest of it. And so someone made this thing called the gay wage gap. At the top, they have normal homosexual jobs: engineer, lawyer, mechanic, IT manager, electrician, pilot, cop, construction worker, physicist. I know a lot of gays that are actually professionals in various types of industries, because usually what you find is that's the path that they choose, is they end up going down these paths. Typically you don't have children, you don't have the family obligations that heterosexual couples have. And so I think it allows more of a focus on work and kind of developing those types of talents. And then they have the LGBTQIA jobs: barista, social worker, gas station attendant, sex educator, they want to be in your schools, astrologer, nail stylist, social media manager, Reiki, massage artist. I don't know what that is, but anyway, I thought it was kind of funny. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, we have a little bit of time, I think, before Tanya will call in. The first thing I wanted to talk about is teletown halls. There's been a lot of this. The Salt Lake Tribune actually had a really good article about the use of teletown halls by elected officials. And in fact, right now, Congress is on they're on their recess. And what they're supposed to be doing, first of all, let's all be real. Our Republican majority, Congress and Senate, is completely and utterly useless. They're useless. And they really shouldn't be on recess. They should be in DC working. But, they need a month break from all the very little work that they did to begin with. And for those of you who if you understand what's going to happen, they're going to come back at the end of August. The fiscal year for the federal government will end on September 30th, and they're going to end up passing a continuing resolution or some sort of other crap bill, claiming that they didn't have time to pass all of their appropriations because they were distracted by other things. These are the most useless, utterly useless individuals, I think, that we've ever seen. The Democrats are way better at this. For all I don't like Democrats generally because I think they're kind of unhinged and crazy right now, but they're also totally dedicated to their cause. So when they get a majority in the Congress, when they get a majority in the Congress, they get the stuff done. GSD, get stuff done. The Republicans just, I don't know if we don't do, part of it might be we don't do a good job during primaries to actually elect conservatives. The other part is that I think they're there and they're trying to undermine Trump. And but unfortunately, a lot of them are endorsed by him. So I'm very conflicted a lot because I don't know what you do with that. Okay. Well, Mr. Producer said there are almost no counties and cities using ranked choice voting anymore. We booted them out in Heber. Okay, well, that's good to know. I wasn't sure if it's legal. I can't remember. And then he said, except for the Texas Dem legislators, I think this is talking about, they're trying to redistrict in Texas, but the Democratic legislators all left to deny them their quorum. That's a really interesting case study in kind of a red state governed by rhinos. They've got a rhino governor. I used to live in Texas, and Greg Abbott is a total rhino. If you really think about this, right, that state, because California is Democrat. I'm just thinking about the Mexican border. California is a Democrat-run state. Arizona is run by a Democrat, although she won in 22, right? So before that, it was, I think, Doug Ducey, a rhino Republican. New Mexico is run by a Democrat. Texas is really the only red state on the US-Mexico border. And when Biden was in office, Abbott allowed a full-scale invasion of his state to occur. There is no obligation by states to allow that to occur. He could have at any point in time mobilized the National Guard, sent them to the border, and shut it down. And he didn't. And some people will say, like, oh, it'll cause this fight, you know, this will happen, that will happen. But those are the types of fights that are worth happening. You don't allow the federal government to open your borders and just let millions of people in if you have power to actually at least try to stop it. And then if they try to sue you in court or do these things, you go through the process and you try to win those battles. But he's a rhino, so he didn't do it. And now, of course, Trump, unfortunately, went and endorsed them. He's already been endorsed. And there's actually a great guy running against him. There's a member of the Texas National Guard who is like a colonel, a medical, like a doctor, I think a surgeon, has amazing experience running against him in the Republican primary. But I don't know that he'll get the light of day because Trump went and endorsed this horrid rhino for office. Okay. Anyway, I totally got distracted. In our... yeah, Mr. Producer, just let me know when Tawny or Tish call in. So basically what's happened is there's only been a couple of in-person town halls so far during the recess, and there was one a few months ago, if you remember, that Representatives Kennedy and Malloy had in Salt Lake City. But I don't think so. They had that a few months ago in Salt Lake City. Just during this recess, I guess Representative Kennedy has had 3 in-person town halls out in kind of rural Utah. Oh, it looks like Tawny is here. Yeah, okay, you can put her through, Mr. Producer. So like I said, Tawny is running for mayor of Riverton. This is one of the candidates we will have today. So as soon as she comes on, we'll start talking. I see nothing. Okay, maybe I'll just keep talking about this teletown hall thing while we wait. Okay, so basically, the reason you're going to see more teletown halls is Republican leadership in DC has instructed legislators to not have in-person meetings anymore. I think Tawny's coming up.
We have Tawny. Go ahead, Tawny. Say hello.
Hello. How are you guys?
I'm good, Tawny. Welcome to the show. I already told everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on. Thanks for taking time away from your family. I know that you're over at the lagoon, celebrating the end of summer.
Yep.
So I've told everyone that you're running for mayor of Riverton. I guess tell us about Tawny McKay. What do you want people to know about you?
Yes, great. So maybe I can tell you a little bit about my background and one thing I've been able to do since I've been on the council.
Yep.
So I have an MBA from Utah State, and I've done financial planning in the past. And when they built Mountain View Village, a big shopping center in Riverton, and the Costco, it really helped increase our city's sales tax revenue. And at first, we were just spending the money, but I knew we needed to be fiscally conservative with it and wise. So I talked to the rest of the council and was able to get consensus to take half of the increase and put it towards debt. So we've been doing that the last 3 years, and we've been able to pay off 3 of the 6 bonds that the city has.
Wow.
Which saves tens of thousands in interest. Yeah, and so I know I'm definitely the most fiscally conservative of the candidates, and I feel like Trent Sachs has done a great job, keeping our budget tight and not increasing taxes in Riverton, and so I would like to keep that going.
Okay. So you've decided to put your hat into the mayor's race. Maybe talk a little bit about your motivation for running for mayor versus staying as a city council member.
Yeah. Well, Trent had said that he only planned to serve 2 terms. And so I knew that he was not planning to run again. And I saw, another city council member change political parties in preparation to run for mayor. And I kind of disagree with that. I kind of feel like you're putting on the other team's jersey.
Sure.
And so when I didn't see any other strong candidates stepping up, I did decide to throw my name in the ring as a lifelong Republican.
Okay. I will say last week I was talking about the Riverton's mayor race, and I got a comment from somebody, David Gaddy, you may know him, and he said he thinks the biggest issue in this race will be high density housing in Riverton. Talk to us about your views of high density housing and how you'll handle that issue as mayor.
Great question. So in 2015, before I was on the council, it was approved to put in, it was as a special designation for the land around Mountain View Village. And it was kind of interesting. The whole area was approved for 7 units per acre, but that was an average for that area. And so then when they took out all the commercial for Mountain View Village and Costco, and they took out the roads and the churches and the schools, then it kept increasing the density. And so it almost doubled the density, that was left on the residential land.
Okay.
And so I feel like there's been enough approved between Bangerter and Mountain View corridor in Riverton. And some of it has been built, but there's still a lot of entitled ground in that area that is going to be housing, and it's going to be pretty dense.
Okay.
So in Riverton, we have 2 kind of big farms left. One of them is by Kari Sue on 2700 West. And the other one is kind of north of In and Out, the Butterfield Farm.
Okay.
And I believe on those 2 pieces, we should not do high density housing or even attached housing. I think that we should do owner occupied single family homes that are not in an HOA and that also don't face the major streets. I think that the yards should face into the community and just have backyards or potentially side yards face the major roads because, nobody likes their home facing a road that has a lot of traffic.
That's very true. Very true.
Yes, I would not support any large developments of multifamily.
Okay. What sorts of issues are voters raising to you as you're on the campaign trail? Maybe what's the biggest issue that's coming up?
As I've been knocking hundreds of doors, the number one complaint and thing that people want to talk about is traffic.
Yeah.
And construction. We have a lot of construction going on. And some people say, all of this multifamily housing's going in and there's so much growth in Harriman and the southwest part of the valley and that we should be doing, more infrastructure. And then the very next thing they say is we're so sick of the traffic. It's putting in that infrastructure that's actually causing that traffic. Because on 118th, they've been putting in a big sewer line. On 134th, they've started work on sewer lines. Now they're also going to be putting in water lines. And then both of those are the sewer district, the water district, and then UDOT is doing the intersection. And those different agencies that partner with our city and provide services, they have easements.
Okay.
And so the city, a lot of people are saying, why didn't the city plan better? Why didn't you, not allow so much construction at once? But they have legally paid for these easements and they have the right to go into those roads and improve their infrastructure or expand it. And so the city, legally, we cannot stop it. We can try and monitor it or encourage them, hey, this other group is going to be going in. But even like right now on 134th, because the traffic is being routed and detoured to 126, that road actually has less traffic right now. And so it's a pain, but it's kind of one of the things that comes with growth. So it's unfortunate. I feel bad for, the Riverton residents. both of the intersections on 134th and 2700 West
Yeah.
should be done and completely open on October 18th. And so I think it will be a Christmas present for all of Riverton. And I'm hoping that people will drive around our city and not through it as much.
Oh my God, it's funny you mention all of that because I live right off 118th, and I'm one of the people that's complained about the construction and traffic.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, it's a pain.
Uh,
But the interesting thing is, you said as soon as they finish those two intersections, they're going to start working on Mountain View Corridor. And that one, it's been better planned for. Like the roads we drive on right now are the surface streets, the side streets. And so they'll be putting in the freeway in the middle. And so hopefully it won't interrupt the traffic as much because it was planned for. The utilities have already been put under and stuff. So hopefully it won't be as bad, but I do feel bad for Harriman and those Riverton residents that live west of Mountain View Corridor.
yeah, I do too. Okay, so another question is, once we're done with the primary, I've heard a lot of people kind of talking about how it would be nice to have a debate. I assume that the two top vote getters will be you and Tish. Are you willing to have a debate? I don't know who would moderate it and stuff like that, but some sort of a debate where we can ask questions and kind of hear both candidates' views on different issues.
Yes, I would be happy to meet. We've met together with a couple of HOAs, and I like to think of it not as much as a debate, because I do respect Councilmember Broker, but kind of a meet the candidate and talk about the issues and get to know each of the candidates and see who you more align with.
Yeah, and I don't mean it. So like when I say debate, I don't mean it as some like you're attacking each other type thing. It's just learning more about each of your viewpoints and being able to compare them, right? So we can say, okay, I like this person, I like that person, for different issues. I assume some people will like you for like this tax or actually not tax, but paying down the debt issue. That's a great issue. And I assume that some people like her for different issues as well.
Can I mention one other thing?
Yeah.
I'm the only candidate that also supported self-providing our police department, and that has saved the city over $21 million so far. And I have been really, really happy with our police department. I like that our officers stay in Riverton. It's not like they rotate around where they're in Riverton for a few days and then they're up in Salt Lake and then in West Valley. And I feel like they're able to do more community-oriented policing and stay in our area.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're at time on this, but can you tell people where they can find you?
Yes. And that's one thing I would actually like to change. If I become mayor, I've been knocking doors and people have been saying, my ballots are sitting on my dining room table and I don't know anything about either of you. And it's really costly and hard to reach out to the residents. And so in the future, I would love to do like a side-by-side comparison of the candidates that starts with their picture, a bio, their website, their email, how to contact them, and then included like maybe 5 questions from Riverton residents that both of them can answer maybe in 100 words or less, all of the candidates, and see it side by side and know where to go to get information. But you can find out more about me at votemckay.com, VOTEMCCAY.com. McKay spelled a little different. Or my email is just TawnyMcKay@gmail.com. I'm happy to talk to or meet with anyone.
Great. Thanks for coming on, Tawny. We appreciate it. Have fun with your family. Thanks for the time.
Okay. Thank you so much, Goud. Have a great day. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Okay, so now actually Tish is here. So let me go ahead and bring her in. But I have to figure out how to, do I just remove this one, Mr. Producer? I'm just gonna remove it. Okay. It came back. Okay, let's bring Tish on. Okay. Hi Tish, how are you? Can you hear me?
I'm great. Thanks very much. I can hear you. Can you hear
I can
me?
hear you, but do you want to move your camera down a little bit? We can only see like your eyes.
Sure.
There you go. Now we can see you.
Gosh, I was hoping I wouldn't be visual, but okay, here I am.
Well, I gave you the option to call in. You look great.
You're right.
All right, well, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Thanks.
Do you want to? So I've told everyone that you're running for the mayor, Riverton mayor. Hold on, my producer says if you could move the camera down a little bit more, so we can see more of you, I guess. Yeah. By the way,
Better?
that shirt's awesome. I love that shirt. So if you want to
Thank you.
start by telling us about Tisch Brokerage. Like, tell us what you want voters to know
Sure.
about yourself.
Sure. Well, I am a lifelong resident of Riverton. I've lived here for 60 plus years.
Wow.
I always hate to say that, because it gives you a hint of my age. But anyway, I've been here a very long time, and I like to tell people that when I grew up in Riverton, there were 3,000 people.
Wow.
And when my children grew up in Riverton, there were 10,000 people, and now there are 45,000 people. So I have seen a great deal of change
Yeah.
during my time here. And then as far as why I'm running because when I grew up here and there were 3,000 people, the only employee we had here in Riverton was our city recorder.
Okay.
And yet we still had town days, we still had the parade, we still had Christmas, we still had Easter egg hunt. All those events occurred. And they occurred because I grew up in a community where people stepped up and volunteered.
Yeah.
So I'm very used to that culture. I'm very used to that ethic. So having served on the council now in year 8, just like Tani, I know I have the skills and the information and the knowledge that it's my time to step up and serve my community. And that's really why I'm running.
Okay. Well, that's I gotta say, that's amazing that you've lived here your entire life. I've moved around a lot, so I'm really impressed by that. That's really cool.
It's cool, but at the same time, I think sometimes, sorry, I interrupted you just a bit, but sometimes people think, well, that makes you too narrow. You don't have enough external knowledge to really do a good job. And so I like to also remind people that even though I've lived here, I've worked with professionally for 35 years plus. I've traveled throughout the United States. My last 5 years of my career, I actually worked out of Denver and worked in the Kansas City market and in the Phoenix market, South Dakota market. So I've had lots of interaction with other folks, and I think that's very helpful also.
Yeah. Maybe, I guess I don't know anything about your professional background. People may find that helpful if you want to talk about it.
Okay. Sure. I always wonder where to start in this journey. But like I said, I worked for 35 years. But the last 20 years of my career, I worked for a company called LabCorp.
Oh.
And I worked for LabCorp from the beginning to a large, major proportion of its growth. So I was part of the process of adding on new employees, adding additional laboratories. And it was a great experience. So I managed the laboratory here in Salt Lake City for about 10 years. And then I was promoted and managed the laboratory in Denver, Colorado, and was promoted again. And then I managed the Rocky Mountain West. So I had a great business career, and I was the director of operations. So I worked with lots of different people in lots of different circumstances. And pretty much my job was solving problems, right? That's what you get every day. What are we going to do about this? We don't have this supply. What about this reagent? What about this physician over here? What about this employee? So all day you spend your time problem solving and figuring out how to improve operations.
Okay, that's I think everybody knows what LabCorp is if you've been to the doctor. Yes. Yeah, I get bills from them all the time.
At one time when I was the general manager, we had 90% of the market here in Salt Lake.
Wow. Okay, that's
we were pretty significant.
Yeah. Okay, so you've decided to run for mayor. Talk about your platform and what you're going to do, what you will do as our next mayor.
Okay. As the next mayor, I think for me, the most important part, and I've told the other council members this, is I really just want to drown them in information. I want to make sure that as a council and as a mayor, we get lots and lots of good information so we can make the best decision. And I don't ever want to influence their decision. I want to make sure they have both for reasons and con reasons so that together we can truly counsel together and make the right decisions. So that's very important to me. Public safety is very important. It's
Okay.
absolutely true that I voted against a local police department, but I was representing the residents in my district. And at that time, I had several of them call me and advocate against it. And then the second reason I voted against it, I like to say, is I was young and dumb. I was brand new on the council.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with it. I wasn't familiar with the issues we had. And then my third comment is that's why you have a council. That vote did not go in my favor. It went against me. And thank goodness it did, because I'm very much a strong advocate of our police department. I think the community oriented policing is the right approach for Riverton.
Okay. You know,
So I'm fine with that.
I bet a lot of voters can appreciate when
please.
somebody actually says, okay, that vote I did was the wrong vote, and here's how I thought about
Right.
it. That's a really, that takes some strength, I think. So,
Yeah, well, thank you.
yeah. Mr. Producer.
You want me to keep going? Are you?
Yeah, no, I have more. Hold on. Mr.
Pardon?
Producer wants to know how long you've been a council member. I think you said it was 8 years, right? On the council?
Yes. Tawny McKay and I started at the very same time.
Okay.
Yes.
I will just say last week I was talking about the Riverton's mayor's race because I actually think this is significant since Trent's not running for re-election. This is kind of
Agreed.
This is kind of a conservative area of the county, one of the more significant ones actually.
Yes.
And one of the comments I got from David Gaddy is that he thinks the biggest issue in this race will be high density housing and how each candidate will approach it. So can you talk about your approach to high density housing in Riverton and what we should expect from you if you're elected mayor?
Well, I have to say it's one of the hardest and one of the best things about running for office is that you really have to walk and knock on people's doors. And when you do that, you really learn so much about your community. And when I walk around Riverton and I look at the beautiful, beautiful neighborhoods that have been created, it's just impressive to me. And I don't want to do anything that would destroy that feel. So for me, I am not interested in any high density, but at the same time, I have to be honest. And I tell people this: go down Redwood Road, go to 118th. There's a T, and if you look on the east side of Redwood Road, you will see a community that I advocated for.
Okay.
And I think it's beautiful. I'm very proud of it. And it's 6 to 7 units per acre. And most people, when I talk to them, for them, that is not an issue and a concern. For most people, it's when you start having shared walls, density greater than 12 units per acre, that's very concerning to people. And I would never, ever advocate for that. But at the same time, you're going to see it because Mount View Village is under that special designation, and that area is going to continue to grow, and it is going to continue to grow as they desire. So the city does not have any ability to stop that growth. And interestingly enough, to me, that growth is not just in the Mountain View area, but it crosses south across 134th into that area where Edge Homes is building. That is also going to be higher density. And that's whether I may or not, that is done.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Just one clarification point. I know I actually live right off
Sure.
18th, so I know exactly what you're talking about when you get up to the T at Redwood Road.
Exactly.
That development is all single family homes, isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so is that the distinction you're kind of making here is between single family homes that have smaller lots versus attached houses?
Correct. And those homes, by the way, sold for $750 to $1 million a piece. Unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievable.
They're beautiful. They look really
Yes.
beautiful from the
So
outside. So
they look really beautiful. And there's a lovely little park that's going in there. And it was very important to me to make sure that when that area was developed, it did not look like a straight shot to 1300. That if you were sitting there at that light, you didn't think, oh, this is a shortcut I'm going to take.
yeah.
And I think the developer achieved that look, which was very important to me. So I'm pleased with the outcome. So I try to be honest and tell people it depends on what you're looking at. I mean, if you live on an acre or 2 acres, then perhaps that looks a little high to you, but most people actually are pretty reasonable about it. The other point I would like to make is that there are some areas in our city where they have larger lots,
Hmm.
and maybe there's an acre or a half acre in a development that hasn't been built yet. I'm absolutely opposed to changing that zoning
Oh,
so that you could put more homes in that area. I think if a commitment has been made, the commitment should remain. And lastly, one of the things that's part of my platform is I really would love to see us have a very robust master plan. I think sometimes our master plan is really just the opinions of council members, the opinions of residents. And I would love to have more of an expert giving us feedback, especially along Redwood Road. There's some open areas along Redwood Road, and I want to make sure they're really developed nicely. So I'm very much supportive of creating a really strong master plan. I was on the Jordan River Commission for about 15 years, and every 10 years they update their master plan, and it's a beautiful document. And it's very important because it helps all the cities that have river access in their area
hmm.
to understand what the whole master look should be, and it provides that direction. And I want Riverton to have that kind of a master plan that you give to every new council member that says, this is our Bible going forward. This is what we want Riverton to look like.
Okay.
And that's how South Jordan's achieved what they've achieved on Redwood Road. I've asked the council members, how have you managed to plan this so nicely? They made a master plan in 2000 and they stuck to it.
Oh, interesting. Okay. For a master plan, when you're developing it, do citizens also get to have input into that document and the planning process?
Yes, sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Um,
But,
Hmm.
absolutely you do. But at the same time, I think it's important to have those experts because we're not as visionary, perhaps,
yeah.
as someone else might be. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I could see value in that because they'll be able to tell you what happened, I assume, in other cities, what worked, what doesn't work, and then help you kind of develop something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, once we're through the primary, that's tomorrow.
Sure.
Are you willing to have a debate with Tawny? I think a lot of us have been talking about how we'd like to see the two of you guys. And I want to make clear, I don't mean debate in a contentious way. I just mean we'll ask you guys questions, you can answer them, and kind of be able to compare and contrast each candidate.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We did have a small, we were both together for one of the HOAs. And if there's any HOAs on this call, I'd really encourage them to have some kind of event in their area. But we did have an event like that a couple of weeks ago, and it was great. And as I told the residents there, this is what politics should be about, because you get to see the differences between both of us, and then you choose. You're the voter. Make your decision and vote what you're seeing via our comparison. So yes, I'd love to debate.
Okay. Finally, where can people find you? If they want to look you up, get information about you.
Well, you can go to my email, which is tishbroker@gmail.com.
Okay.
I have a website also, which I have to just look down at my little paper because you're not going to believe it, but I can't always remember it. But it's Tish for Mayor.
Oh.
And then I have Facebook, which right now it just says Tish Broker.
Okay.
And you can call me or send me a text.
Okay. Is it Tish the number 4 mayor or Tish FOR mayor?
Tish FOR, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
I've,
Tish
I've
FOR.
run for office. It's always like Goud, the number 4, Utah.
Darn, it's been used before. Shoot.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for coming on, Tish. We appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have you back
Sure.
at some point. Good luck tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, well, if you're a Riverton resident, let's see if the Mr. John Scott calls in. He is also running for the mayor's race. But as I said last week, tomorrow is the primary, and it's my view that you should vote for either Tani or Tish. They're both clearly like very well versed in issues in Riverton. They both have experience. I think in this case it would be helpful in our local government. They both understand local issues, regardless of how you feel about them. And so I think either of them, both of them have earned the right to go into the general election. And then at that point, let's have a debate and let's figure out who to vote for. The other thing I was going to say is there has been a change in the law. So it used to be that you could stick your mail-in ballot into the mail until election day, and it could arrive up to it could arrive until the canvass, or the day. Sorry, excuse me, until the day before the canvass. But they changed the law this last session, so now your mail ballot actually has to arrive at the clerk's office by 8 p.m. on election day. So if you have not mailed it yet, I would not stick it in the mail at this point. You should either go and put it in a drop box, and they are in every single city in the county, or you should go and vote in person. Personally, I would recommend voting in person. So that's tomorrow. So there should be in-person voting locations tomorrow. Okay, let's continue with the show. If you want to call in, the number is 385-899-2134. So let's continue. We were talking about teletown halls. So let me pull this back up. And I'll just say this. I have a real issue with teletown halls in general. I think it's a way for elected officials to screen what types of questions people ask, and then also to make it so that there's like this group dynamic that can happen when you go to a town hall. Obviously, there'll be some people that'll be there to disrupt it. You know, you can see here, this was, I think, from the town hall that Representatives Kennedy and Malloy did in March, right? And you can see there's people there, obviously, they're trying to disrupt it. There's some crazy people wearing masks. Not today, you expect that. This is going to happen. But at the same time, you'll probably meet people who think like you. You may even agree with some of these. You never know. Like they may bring up something, like the crazy lady in the mask with the red hair. She might bring up something that you agree with. And it's useful to be able to go to these types of things and talk to people. So basically where we had ended is I said Republican leadership in DC has told legislators, according to this article, not to hold in-person town halls. I think they're doing that because they're scared about optics, right? Clearly, if you look at polling, the Democrats have a big lead on the generic ballot, which is not good for midterms. I'm just going to tell you right now, I think we're heading towards big losses in 2026 if something doesn't change. And honestly, I don't think anything's going to change because, as I also said before, the Republican majority Congress is completely and utterly useless. Okay. Just so you know, you're listening to and watching the Goud Crowd on KMMU Main Street Media, Utah. We're live on X, Rumble, and YouTube. Search KMMU on your favorite platform. Thanks for listening. Call in live. Your lonely call screener is waiting. The number is 385-899-2134. And we love calls from everybody. You can either be a lover or a hater. You know, I like my haters, as Cardi B loves her haters. Okay, so anyway. So if you notice, the other piece about the teletown hall. So in addition to the fact, the benefit for them, for elected officials of teletown halls, is that they can screen all of your phone calls. And they only take the questions that they actually want to answer. I've gotten multiple calls, for example, from Senator Mike Lee's office, where it's because part of what the article talks about is they get a lot more people to participate because they can actively call voters and invite them to join the town hall. And so they can get thousands of people, which you wouldn't normally get for a regular town hall, partly because obviously you have to show up in person. There'll be capacity issues, and it's just a little bit different. But they can screen all of the phone calls. So every single time I've had Mike Lee's staff do that, it's a robocall. You join in, you push a button, then they'll let you ask a question. My question never gets asked, not one time. Oh, it looks like we have a call. You can put her through, Mr. Producer. It looks like that worked. Look, I said, hey, you can call in. Someone called. How lucky are we? Okay. So, let's see. I think she's, I can't tell what's going on. Okay. Anyway, I just, my own view is they should be doing in-person town halls. Like I said, there's value to it. You can't control the questions. You can't control your audience. You have to be able to engage with people that don't agree with you. That's just part of it. Like, you don't just represent Republicans, you also represent Democrats if you're in Utah, for example. So, I think our call is coming in here.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Hi, Goud.
Yeah, hey Tracy, welcome to the show. What do you want to talk about?
So I want to talk about, I just listened to your show earlier and the candidates that were on. And I want to clarify something because it is something that people are confused about when it comes to bonds.
Okay.
And what Tony said is that she pays them off early and it saves a ton of money. And that is not true. Typically, when a bond is issued, the bond requires you to pay the entire amount, including all the interest. It doesn't matter if you pay it off early. So it saves no money. It actually hurts people. The whole reason why you got a bond is to stretch it out as long as you can.
Okay.
But because you could pay it off, say there's something due in 2030 and you pay the interest for the next 5 years. If you pay it up today, you still have to pay that interest that was owed to 2030. It doesn't matter if you pay off a bond early. That is a trick that most politicians will try to do. And I don't know if they just don't completely understand it or if they know what they're doing, because all you're doing is giving the investor their money faster. They still get all the money.
Is
So I
that
wanted
true?
to clarify that because I did. Yes, it's 100% true.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I've studied the last 2 years. Yeah, because it's very tricky. You think it's a good thing to hurry and pay off the bond. And they did this back in Uinta County one time, and the treasurer kept trying to beg the county council there, I think they're commissioners, to not to do that because it would hurt them if they paid it off, because then they would just have to turn around and go get more money because they were taking all their entire money and paying it because you have to still pay all the interest. So I just wanted to call in and clarify that for people so they know about bonds and they can learn about that, because that is not an attribute.
Okay.
That is wrong to do.
I've never heard that before. So
I just wanted to call in
that's
I
interesting.
did enjoy. Yeah. It's you do not pay off a bond off early because you just pay them off. The investor just gets their money faster. They always agreed to get the exact same amount.
Well, okay.
It's not like a loan.
Well, I have a question about this, because what she was saying, if I remember this right, is they're using kind of if that Mountain View Village brings in tax revenue over what has been projected, they use 50%, I think, of the projected additional revenue to then go pay down the bonds that we have. So I think there's 6 bonds total, 3 are paid off.
The investor back.
Yeah, but is there value in paying down
The investor back.
Yeah, but is there value, do you think, in paying down debt early?
No, not on bonds. Not when it comes to a bond, because a bond, that's the sole purpose of a bond, is to be issued and with a very low interest over a period of years. It's not like a loan like you and I would think about. It's different. And the investor has agreed to loan it out for the exact same amount for the interest. You don't benefit from paying it off early, because then an investor is not going to want to issue bonds to you.
Well,
It's totally different than a loan.
yeah.
And so she's just giving the money back to the investor faster.
Yeah, but maybe when I'm thinking about this from the flip side, though, they have this extra money. So if they don't spend it on paying down the bonds, where would it go? Like, would we be, for example, would we be doing even more construction everywhere? Because I don't know that I want that.
Why do you have to spend it? It's sales tax is what she's getting.
Yeah.
Sales tax is not a forced tax. So why don't you go take that sales tax and then compensate us on other taxes that we're getting for, like our trash, our whatever city fees that we are actually getting. Take that money and give it back to the residents. She's just giving it back to the investors and thinks she's doing a good job. And that's not the way it works. Bonds don't work that way. Take the money back that we're getting from the sales tax and give it back to the people. Incentivize it that way. I know we don't have city taxes, but we do pay for our police and fire. Let's put it towards that so the people aren't paying for it. Let's make the Riverton citizens never pay for these fees ever again because we're getting so much sales tax. Instead, she's misusing it and paying it back as fast as she can to someone that's already rich and loaned the money, and they're getting the exact same amount back. So it's just a lot of people don't understand bonds, and I just wanted to make sure I clarified that meaning of what a bond is, and it's actually not a good thing to pay it back faster.
Okay. That might be a good question to ask whenever they have a debate, to try to dig a little bit more into the issue. Because like I said, I didn't know this. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it would be good because I'd like to go pull all the bonds and show you in the actual language, in the contract language, if that's how it works. So if somebody's touting that, I'm thinking either they don't know really what they're talking about, or which she should, because she's a councilman, she should have went and at least read the bond and seen if it really mattered to pay it back. Mm-hmm. Or are they being sold by even the Zions person saying, yeah, pay it back fast, because they just get their money faster.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, if you want to pull language and send it to me, I'll talk about it on the show. I'll just have to do a little research on it. But that's kind of
because I would like people to be more informed on that, because that is a very tricky issue to use as saying that you're conservative, but you really either don't understand bonds or you are portraying something that's not true. Anyways, but
I'll
get it. Maybe you can do a show on it.
I don't know if I'll do a whole show on it. No offense, it doesn't sound that interesting. But yeah, we'll talk about it.
It's not. They use to trick you.
Any other thoughts on the race?
No. I just hope people get out and vote, and they vote for Fish Baroker.
Okay. How did you vote? Are you voting in person, voting by ballot drop box, mail?
I vote in person. I think we should celebrate it. Your vote is valuable, and I think you should celebrate it and take the time and to go do it, like we used to do back in the day. And I also know a lot of people like to say, well, I like my ballot so I can see my do my research before I go vote. Well, you can go on the website and see who's there. I think paper ballots and mailing them in has taught us to be lazy Americans, and taught us not to watch what is going on, especially in our legislature. I mean, for example, the whole scandal with Stuart Adams influencing, so his granddaughter didn't get, high penalties or punishment. And I think when you get your ballot, you're like, oh, I'll just look later. Instead of, we need to be watching this entire time and seeing what they're doing and what bills are being passed and what issues that we don't like is happening. So I'm not a paper ballot person, but hopefully one day we can get people excited about voting in person again.
Yeah, hopefully. Also, just so everyone knows, there's only one race in Riverton, so it's actually not, you don't really need to do any research. Just go vote in person. It'll take you like 5 minutes.
Right. Well, I think there's a couple council races, but not as far as the mayor goes.
Okay. For us, it's only 2, or the mayor's race, but
Yes. Yeah, we just have 1, so.
okay. Well, thanks for calling in. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, there you go. We'll have to look into this bond issue. That's kind of interesting. Like I said, though, and a good point about the extra taxes. I guess you could reduce other taxes with the extra sales tax, because that Mountain View Village is, it's booming down there. And there's lots of really good, if you like restaurants and stuff, great restaurants, good food. It's kind of fun. If you like to drink, there's like places you can go drinking. It almost doesn't look like it's in Utah. Okay, so teletown halls. Okay, I don't know that I have a lot more to say about this, to be honest with you. Let's see. The one thing I'm going to say is John Curtis in this article talks about he does not have any town hall scheduled for August, but he's apparently trying to reinvent the town hall, aiming for short one-on-one meetings with constituents rather than large group gatherings. I just think this is interesting because I think I told you guys maybe a few months ago that I had gotten a text message from John Curtis. I'm not sure why. I think it's because I was criticizing him for something. And he agreed to come onto the show and that he would do an interview. Well, and he told me to contact his scheduling person. I did. And then the person actually messaged me back and said, Senator Curtis basically is not allowed to come on your show, something to that effect. And so I emailed the person back and said, why not? He actually told me to contact you and said he would come on my show. And I wouldn't even be, if you notice, I'm not actually, nasty to people or anything like that. Maybe I'll ask a tough question if there's something there to ask about. But they should be able to handle that. He's a senator. He's had to have done hundreds of interviews. So if someone asks him a tough question, I don't really see how difficult it would be for him to actually handle that. But anyway, I took that recently. I screenshotted the response and I sent it to Senator Curtis, since he's been texting me, and just said, hey, you said you would come on the show. I emailed and here's the response I got. And then he's ghosted me. I guess he's not responding. So, whatever. Now, according to what Curtis stated in this article is that, let's see. Hold on. Okay, he said, increasingly, we've seen town hall meetings hijacked by a few loud voices determined to dominate the room. It seems to me they arrive not to ask questions, but to cause a scene. The goal isn't dialogue, it's disruption. The result, those who genuinely came to listen, learn, and engage are pushed to the sidelines. When elected officials are left unable to offer thoughtful, fact-based answers to reasonable questions. Instead, Curtis said he has shifted to meeting one-on-one with constituents in 5-minute meetings, which he wrote he finds more productive and less performative. And increasingly, he said, he sees his travels around the state as a sort of extended town hall meeting. So I guess this is a way to do it. I still think there's value in town hall meetings because, again, you can see what questions people are really burning to ask about. Sometimes you'll hear a question and be like, oh, that's actually a really great point. Someone might point out something that the person has done that you didn't think of. There's just a lot that happens at in-person town halls if you've ever been to one. And yes, there can be disruptions. Frankly, I think that's kind of what makes them fun too. If you like a little bit of drama, that's great stuff to see. But I understand maybe a lot of Utahns don't actually like that because it might feel contentious. But, I think that's fun. Okay, before we go to our next topic, I'm curious what people think about this. I saw this post and I thought it was kind of interesting. So this is like a male cheerleader, I think. So you see him in the middle here. Oh, let's see. We'll play music. Hold on. Okay, so this Owen Stroyer guy, he tweeted this and said, "Imagine you buy front row season football tickets, and when you sit down, there's some man gyrating right in front of you." But I'm going to tell you, I actually, it might be because I'm gay, I don't know, but I don't really have an issue with this. He's dressed as a man. He's clearly not trying to pretend to be a woman, so he's not trans. He's just actually a man who's a cheerleader. And frankly, he's actually pretty good. So maybe it's, the same way that they want to push women to be in all the male-dominated professions. I don't see why men can't go and do this. And in fact, to me, it's like we have all these. When I talk about like the trans issue is a lot of times people who push the trans agenda, they try to push you into stereotypical gender roles. Well, this is not a stereotypical gender role. I don't see an issue with it because he's just a man who's good at dancing, who's now a cheerleader, and he's not pretending to be something he's not. So I don't see the issue with it. I assume he's gay, or he's a very effeminate straight man. but again, like he's good at what he does. I don't really see an issue with it. Okay, so now let's talk about Stuart Adams. This story has really blown up. And so let me give you a little bit of context, and then we'll go through this because I think there's a deeper problem here that we need to address in our state. And but let me just pull up one thing here real quick, and then I'll give you a quick rundown. Oh, sorry. My big dog is running around here. Let's try to. Are you stuck? All right. So we have a little bit more information now. So just as a background, we talked about this last week in some detail. We have a little bit more information about what happened here. Mr. Producer says, your new computer is working great. That is correct. It is working. Isn't this great? I have a new computer. I love it. I can actually play videos. So maybe we'll start playing videos more, right? It's kind of fun. Anyway, so an 18-year-old had sex with a 13-year-old. An 18-year-old high school student, just so we're clear, had sex with a 13-year-old junior high student. When we talked about this last week, we didn't know the sex of the individuals involved because the way that the Tribune and other newspapers wrote about it, it was very not specific. Well, there's been a lot of social media activity about it. And I think some of the people might actually know who the 18-year-old is. And they might have found it out from Stuart Adams himself. I don't know, but it's apparently the 18-year-old is a female. And the 13-year-old was a male. Now, in my view, this is important and it'll come up a little bit later, but I do not think an 18-year-old in high school and a 13-year-old in junior high are actually peers. And I talked about this last week. I think there's some argument to be made when kids who are in high school are having sexual relations, that you might want to treat that differently because they are in a shared community. This type of stuff happens a lot. And you might want to just treat it a little bit differently. But a 13-year-old in junior high just strikes me as not part of the community as the 18-year-old in high school. So another thing is in Utah, children under 14 cannot legally consent to sex. And this is also important because, as you'll see, people keep making these arguments that imply that there could have been some sort of consent here. Oh, so Mr. Producer said this fascinated me because the ages and sexes were swapped. Yeah, I think that's interesting too. I didn't expect this. It's very odd. The girl was older than the boy. Wrong. He says wrong in either case. But yeah, I agree. This is unusual. I didn't expect it to be reversed like this. So when I read that, I was like, okay, that's interesting. Now, what happened is in 2024, the legislature passed SB 213, where they changed the law about 18-year-olds who engage in sex with 13-year-olds and gave a new option to charge them if the 18-year-old is in high school. Okay, so now I want to talk. There's a few other pieces of this. Let me pull up some. I have my document. Hold on, wrong document. I got things a little bit mixed up on my screen. So, okay, here we go. So let's start with the article that we looked at last week. because there's some really good information in here that I think is illuminating to the situation. So there we go. Okay, so like we said last week, there was an 18-year-old Utahn was staring at the potential of years in prison, accused of having sex with a 13-year-old. We now know the 18-year-old is a female, 13-year-old is a male. Then the Utah legislature, based on an initial suggestion from Senate President J. Stewart Adams, changed the law. 2 months later, prosecutors offered the 18-year-old, who was related to Adams, a plea deal. The teen would plead guilty to reduced charges, face no additional jail time beyond a week already served, and would not have to register as a sex offender. The new law was not made retroactive, and the teenager was not charged with the new lower level crime it created. But in court hearings, the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense attorney, Kara Tangaro, who helped draft the bill language that was adopted by the legislature, all acknowledged it was pivotal to resolving the charge against the 18-year-old. So just keep in mind, the defense attorney was involved in drafting the language in the bill that changed the law. Okay. So, and what Ms. Tangaro said is, you saw the legislative change, Tangaro told Judge Rita Cornish at sentencing. We all agree that's not retroactive, but the government did change their offer based on that. Okay. So 17-year-olds who have sex with 13-year-olds face a third-degree felony charge of unlawful sexual activity. The new law now allows prosecutors to file that same charge against an 18-year-old if they are enrolled high school student. Previously, as adults, 18-year-old high school students who had sex with a 13-year-old could face a charge of child rape, a first-degree felony. A conviction on the charge generally requires registration as a sex offender, while a conviction on the newly created lesser charge does not. Now, let's see here. I posted about this today. The mother in this of the 13-year-old has given an interview. And what she said is, the mother of the junior high student victim said in an interview with the Tribune that she was shocked to learn about the change to the law. It was out of nowhere, she said. I felt like I was punched in the gut. She believes her child was an afterthought in both the legislative debate and the handling of the criminal case. I feel like a law is the law, regardless of who you are, but that wasn't what was going on here. I feel like the 18-year-old just got special treatment and nobody was going to say anything about it. So the mother has come out and said her child was a victim. She didn't know the law was going to be changed, right? So think about it. It's kind of traumatizing, right? You're trying to protect your child and this happens. A little bit more on this. This is what the mother told the Trib. In 2023, the victim's mother said her 8th grader mentioned in a random conversation that the 18-year-old had sex with the child. I just told the child, they took the name out, you understand what this is. They're an adult and you're not old enough to make these decisions, the mother said. Her child wanted me to report it, she said, and she contacted police. A friend of the 18-year-old also reported the allegation to police hours later, according to court documents. So there's been these arguments about consent, but I guess I'm kind of wondering if the 13-year-old told his mom that he wanted to report this to the police. That strikes me as this argument about consent is kind of gone, right? Like, why did he want this to be reported? We're not told more than that about the report itself, but at least that indicates that the child was not comfortable with what happened. Okay, so, and then the other piece is, I talked about this last week, but the addition in SB 213, hold on. I think the vast majority of what was in SB 213 were changes to criminal law. So whether it was change to how you could be charged, change to sentencing, and it went through the Sentencing Commission. The Sentencing Commission director, this guy Dan Strong, actually told the Trib that the language dealing with 18-year-old high school students was not among the recommendations of the working group. Now, I think what's really fascinating as we go down here, oh wait, there's a little bit more, hold on, sorry. A little bit more in the article, okay? So, there's also this, like, Stewart Adams apparently confided to Senator Kirk Cullimore, who was a sponsor of SB 213 in 2024, about what was going on with his niece. And so Cullimore then said they decided that it would be better policy to not have that severe of a punishment when an 18-year-old in high school is charged with having sex with a 13-year-old. So then Cullimore worked with Tangerow, the defense attorney. She drafted the language that would allow the lower level charge to be filed against 18-year-olds still in high school and shared it with legislative attorneys. Now, they ended up passing this bill. And another interesting tidbit is that Representative Carrie Ann Lisabee, she was actually the House sponsor of this bill, said she was not aware of the impetus of the change for 18-year-olds or Tangerow's role in crafting the language. The legislation passed near the end of the session when bills moved quickly, she said, but she now opposes that change to law. So I think this may get changed in the future. Now let me kind of show you. Let's keep going down here and you'll see. Oh, what's this? Hold on. Give me a second. Let me find what it's going to look like. I skipped to steak dinner Republicans. That must be old. Let me go back up. Here we go. Okay. So now this is what I've been finding really fascinating is that there seems to be a split on the Republican side about what happened here. The Democrats have called for Stuart Adams to resign. And it started with Nate Bluen, who is a state senator from somewhere in Salt Lake City. And probably not the best person or the best spokesperson for calling for the resignation. And let me show you why. For those of you who don't know, here's this is Nate Bluen posted this. Let's see if you can see this. Let me zoom out a little bit. There you go. So this is like a picture of a 13-year-old boy dressed as a girl dancing at one of these. I think they're the Vogue, the balls that they do, right? It's called a ball. If you've ever watched the show Pose with all the transgender people, they used to have these balls. I think they still might have them. And they do all these crazy dance moves, and apparently kids go to them. And so when Nate Bluen saw this, he said, that kid's got moves to a 13-year-old boy dressed as a girl at an event like this, dancing for adults. Gross. So I don't think he's the best person to be the best spokesperson for this. However, maybe we should be asking the question. Maybe we need to ask a different question, and that is he correct? Even if he's a flawed messenger, is he correct? So now here is, I saw this on Facebook. This is Gunnar Thordarson. He's like a Republican activist. He's on the Republican State Central Committee. And I feel like what's happening is you're kind of now beginning to see the difference between Republicans that are tribal and Republicans maybe that are more principled. So what his response here strikes me as being a little bit more tribal. So he said, Utah is in an uproar right now, and most people don't even know what this new law actually does. I think actually we all do know what the law does because it says in the newspaper. He said it's not a free pass for predators. It does not lower the age of consent. It does not legalize sex between adults and minors. Well, it at least reduces the penalty if you're in high school. What it does is gives judges the ability to tell the difference between a predator and two teens in a consensual relationship who are close in age. That is a difference the law should always make. Now, just go back to what I was talking about. The 18-year-old in high school had sex with a 13-year-old in junior high. I don't know that these are actually close in age. Right now, I'm 48. If I date someone that is, let's say 40, that's close in age because, like we're at a similar stage in life, whatever, all adults. I don't think an 18-year-old and a 13-year-old are actually as similar as this implies. The other thing is he says it's a consensual relationship, but as the article says, the 13-year-old asked the mother to call the police about what had happened. So that strikes me as, I don't think it was quote unquote consensual. Again, the 13-year-old can't even give consent. So to say that doesn't make sense. I think what he's saying is that it was not rape, meaning it wasn't forcible sex. It was at least there was some form of participation by the 13-year-old, but still no ability to consent. So then he says this was part of a larger criminal justice bill sponsored by Senator Kirk Cullimore and supported by Senate President Stuart Adams. Well, that's the problem, right? Stuart Adams was doing this in response to something that happened to his own niece. Let's see. It creates a narrow window for judges to reduce charges when the facts show the relationship was consensual, and the age gap small, usually in peer or near peer situations. Predators who target young minors or abuse positions of power can and should still face the full weight of the law. Well, I don't know. I mean, again, it's an 18-year-old who had sex with a 13-year-old, so it is an adult. The 18-year-old can register to vote. If the 18-year-old had been a male, he would have had to, register for the selective service. But think about it. You used to be able to smoke. I don't know if you can smoke anymore. Is that like a thing? Or do you have to be 21 to smoke now? I think you can buy a gun. There's a lot of things you can do as an adult. You can go join the military, go overseas and kill people. Like, there's all sorts of things you can do now that you're 18. And I think also, like, we treat you as an adult when we charge you for crimes. Sometimes I wonder if in Utah there's a little bit of an infantilization of adults. I've seen this a lot with elected officials where they'll talk about their adult children as if they're kids or minors. It's very puzzling to me because my mother I hope my mother would never do that. I don't think she would, but it's just a little bit strange, and I wonder if some of that's bleeding into policy making here. So then he says Democrats are using this to go after Adams because of his family connection, ignoring the fact that the policy is solid. Okay, and then he says Republicans defend the bill but dodge the harder conversation about moral consistency and how we protect kids. Both sides get selective with their outrage when it benefits them politically. Okay, I guess. So I don't know if this policy is solid, right? The article talked about how this was like the legislators didn't even know about it. I haven't gone back to look at the debate on SB 213, and maybe I'll try to do that to see if this was even mentioned. But the reality is that they didn't, like Carrie Ann Lisabee was the House sponsor and didn't know that wasn't aware of the change, or maybe she wasn't aware of the reason behind the change. I think she had to be aware of the change because let me show you this. This is SB 213 from the legislative website. And what you'll see here is that this modification is actually called out specifically. So it says that this bill modifies the crime of unlawful sexual activity with a minor to address a defendant who is 18 years old and enrolled in high school at the time the sexual activity occurred. So I think when it calls it out like this, and it called it out, let me just add, this was not slipped in a subsequent version, because I think there were 3 versions of this bill before it passed. It wasn't slipped in. Even the first version had this language in it. So if you are working on this bill, you would have been able to see that this was one of the provisions in the bill from the beginning. So I don't know that you can really say, unless you're not reading your bills at all, that you didn't know that language was in there. So let me go back here. But I think the problem is now we don't really know if it's good policy or not. It's been tainted by Stuart Adams's involvement because I think he was trying to help his niece. And also, I don't think there's been a full debate on it. It didn't go through that sentencing commission, which seems like the appropriate way to first have these lawyers who work in the criminal law area. And I'm not one to usually defer to experts or anything, but they'll at least be able to offer you really good insights into how these things are working in our courts and with prosecutors' offices, and then be able to determine what appropriate policy is. I said last week, and I still stand by this, I think that there are arguments for saying if the 18-year-old's in high school and they have sex with someone else in high school, that you would reduce the penalties for that. Here, I don't know how you get around the fact that the kid was 13. And what we don't know, I don't know the answer to this. Did the 18-year-old know that the kid was 13? Because then I really don't have any, I don't have any sympathy for that. So he said, we protect kids best when we are clear about what predatory abuse actually is. That means exploitation by someone significantly older or in a position of power, authority, or trust. We also protect kids by being smart enough not to ruin a teenager's life over a consensual relationship with someone close in age. This law gets that right. If we are serious about justice, we need to stop posturing posturing, tell the truth, and apply the same standard no matter whose side it helps or hurts. Again, I think this might get more to punishment. So it's an 18-year-old. Maybe there's some argument for less punishment, but you deal with that by adjusting like the sentencing requirements. I don't think you deal with it by changing what they should be charged with, right? You give the courts more discretion on the sentencing piece of it. This is, again, like I said before, I don't know that we know this is good policy. I just don't think there's been a good debate on it. I also think, again, 18 and 13 are not close in age. Now, here's a post by Carrie Bartholomew, and this is actually, I guess, a message from Trevor Lee that he sent her. Also, I just want to say, just as an aside, I don't know that Gunnar actually drafted this post. I'm wondering if somebody else drafted it and he posted it. So unless my interactions with him have not been accurate, I just don't think he wrote that post. No offense. Okay, so Carrie Bartholomew from Representative Trevor Lee. As someone who voted for this bill, I'll share the facts and then let's debate the bill on what everyone believes needs to be changed. Well, okay. So he says that we already had a specific ladder for unlawful adolescent sexual activity used when conduct is mutually agreed and does not involve force, threats, or coercion. Again, I don't know that we know that this is what happened here. I'm also not sure. I think there's also a distinction between a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old. There's something that's I'm not comfortable with any of this, right? If it didn't, so what a 12-year-old? Are you gonna say for a 12-year-old now? Okay, well, if you're 18 or an 11-year-old, if you're 18, you have sex with an 11-year-old and there's no force, threats, or coercion, we're okay with that? I mean, is there really a situation where we're okay with people like 18-year-olds, adults, these are adults, engaging in sexual activity with 13-year-olds? This makes me really uncomfortable. I'm not seeing the justification for it. I would love, if someone has a comment about this and has some thoughts on why this should be allowed, I'd love to hear it. I'm having difficulty processing that this is a good policy. So then he says penalties depend on age. Okay, so 17 with a 13, third-degree felony. 16 with a 12-year-old, third-degree felony. But 16 and 17 are minors. 16 with a 13-year-old, Class A misdemeanor. 14 or 15 with a 12-year-old, Class A misdemeanor. 17 with a 14-year-old is a Class B misdemeanor. It just goes on and on here. And basically what you see in this ladder, if you're not able to see it, is as the age of the perpetrator and the victim goes down, the severity of the charges also goes down. But I think that's a recognition that these are immature children that you're dealing with. And that sometimes kids do stuff that is, we don't want them to do it, but obviously everyone here grew up, you're adults, people do stuff, it happens. Okay, then he says, and so we have to deal with that. And so I understand the ladder from that perspective, that, if they're younger, you're going to treat them differently. I'm still uncomfortable with the 18-year-old piece of this. What changed? In 2024, the legislature added a narrow option. If the older teen is 18, an adult, still enrolled in high school, and the conduct is mutually agreed, no force, threats, or coercion, prosecutors may charge the same third-degree felony they already used for a 17-year-old in the identical situation. Without this change, some high school kids would be charged with a first-degree felony, mandatory 25 years in prison. It's case by case, not automatic. Rape of a child remains a first-degree felony charge. The update didn't change that, but it gave prosecutors a middle path for 18-year-olds still in high school when there's no force or coercion. Again, this situation, it just seems a little bit weird to me. 18-year-old high school student with 13-year-old junior high student. And then I guess we have parts of our law that consider power dynamics. So he says, years ago, Utah added extra penalties when a teacher or person in authority abuses a minor. I support that. More recently, the legislature went further. A teacher or similar authority can't have sex with an 18-year-old student, even though the 18-year-old is not a minor and both are adults. Why write it that way? Because there's little difference between a 17-year-old in a high school classroom and their 18-year-old classmate. That just makes sense. When there's coercion, grooming, threats, or violence, throw the book at them. Save the hammer for predators. Use a scalpel for edge cases. The 2024 option is a scalpel. The new law aligns an 18-year-old in high school with how we already treat a 17-year-old when there's no force or coercion, and it leaves prosecutors free to swing the hammer when the facts demand it. I'll also say that, one of the issues when you allow this type of discretion is that somebody like who is related to Stuart Adams gets special treatment, but I don't know that every 18-year-old that's in high school is going to get the same treatment as this woman did. And I'm going to call her woman because she's an adult. She was an adult when this happened. I think the biggest lesson to take away from this is, number one, I don't know if this is good policy or not. I don't think there's been a full debate on it. And now I think it's completely tainted by the fact that it looks like Stuart Adams was actually trying to do something to change the sentencing that his niece got. And that's not cool, no matter what you're talking about. We don't want legislators using our legislative process to get special benefits for their family members. That's a problem. The second piece is this, I think this points to a flawed legislative process. Our legislature puts out over 500 bills a year. That's how many they propose. They pass hundreds of bills. There's no way that they're reading all these bills. And as they get, they're definitely not reading all the bills. And as they get towards the end of the session, they start waiving all the requirements. So you're supposed to have a hearing. They waive the hearing requirements. They start cutting down on public comment periods. They make it so that we're not getting maximum input on laws that really have a big impact. And here, I think if you're going to change laws like this, you want as much input as possible, because think about the mother of the 13-year-old. Her son is the victim of what happened here. She's dealing with that and feeling like her son, that there wasn't proper justice done because our legislature did kind of a dirty process to pass a law. And like I said, the law didn't go through that law changing how 18-year-olds who are in high school should be treated when they have sex with a 13-year-old. That did not go through the proper vetting process that other provisions of the same bill went through. It didn't go through the Utah Sentencing Commission. So we don't know if that was a good policy or not. I think there's going to be more on this too. So, I started out by kind of talking about whether Stuart Adams should resign, as Nate Bluen has said, and maybe he should, honestly. Maybe he should, but I suspect I've heard that there's going to be more to the story that I think will actually probably lead to more people calling for him to resign. And so, for all these people out there kind of being tribal and defending him, I don't really know why. If he's gone, I don't really care. We have a Republican supermajority. It'll just be replaced by maybe somebody better. I don't even think he's very good. Let me make this point. We know about this situation where he went and he influenced legislation to benefit his family members. If he did it for this situation, I'm sure he's done it for other situations too that we don't know about. So now that you already have that indication of what type of a legislator he is, why would you not want him to get replaced? Like, what's the value of having somebody like this as the Senate president, when maybe we could get someone who is not corrupt, not trying to get special favors for their family members? Because I don't know, maybe he's getting other types of special favors, using taxpayer money to benefit his family, passing laws that benefit their economic situation. You never know with this stuff. And I would just say maybe he should resign. But like I said, I think there's going to be more on this story, and it's not going to be good. And when that stuff starts to come out, probably, I guess, a lot of the Republicans are going to have to change their mind, unless they're really that tribal. I can't imagine, but I know a lot of these Republicans, I don't actually think they're that tribal. For some reason, though, this issue has gotten people to draw these lines that just surprised me. Right? Oh, this is good policy. Oh, okay. I have no idea if it's good policy. How do you know it's good policy? Because someone told you that? Okay. Like I said, I am actually a little bit disturbed by that whole story, because I don't know that I feel like it's a good idea for for us to be making excuses for 13-year-olds having sex. But okay, now let's talk about DC. So I lived in DC for 16 years, from 2000 to 2016. I went to law school there, and then I worked there. It's actually, for those of you who haven't been or haven't spent significant time there, it's a beautiful city. It's historic. I mean, it's really pretty. And so I just thought maybe let's start for a little fun. Maybe it's fun for me, maybe not for you, but I'll show you the last place I lived when I was there. So this is where I lived. This is a neighborhood called Bloomingdale. So it's at First and S Street Northwest. So isn't it cool? It's a little condo. I lived up here in the top 2 floors, had its own private roof deck. And then you can look at these houses. See, they're historic. And then you go down the little neighborhood. You can walk everywhere from here. But see how historic and pretty it is? That's kind of a cool part about our capital. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna take you to while we're doing this, I'm gonna show you my favorite restaurant in DC. Thought that'd be kind of fun. Okay, here we go. I'll get right here. Here it is. This is a place called Red Hen. I used to eat here all the time. Totally good food, fantastic drinks. And this is all right by the house. So you can just walk around. You got like, let's see here, Red Hen. I haven't been here in years, so I don't know what it looks like. Oh, you can go do, let's see here, yoga in the Black Lives Matter studio, I guess. I don't know what that's like. I don't think I want to be there. Anyways, the cool little neighborhood. But DC has a lot of these types of neighborhoods. So it's kind of a fun place, but it does have a crime problem, and the crime has gotten much, much, much worse. So let me show. Here's, and the reason we're talking about this is today Trump actually federalized DC, took over the police force, and sent the Guard in, and now is going to have it policed better because they have a massive crime problem. And so I saw this a few years ago. She just reposted about it today, but she said, this is Carolyn Wren. I don't know who this lady is, but I lived in Washington, D.C. for 15 years and finally moved in 2023 because the crime was out of control. The last straw for me, while I was having dinner on 14th Street, a car drove by spraying bullets out the window, and one hit and killed a young father less than a block away. So when this happened, I remember reading about it in the paper. I had already moved away. And 14th Street. So, when I lived there were a lot of neighborhoods that were full of all sorts of crime problems. So like Capitol Hills, where the law school I went to was, you had to take a bus, this little like bus thing, if you wanted to go to the metro stop at night, because it was totally unsafe. So they would run that little metro bus. Then the Columbia Heights area in the 60s during riots have been basically burned to the ground. So it was like a bad neighborhood. U Street was unsafe. 14th Street, what she's talking about, is again, it's called a neighborhood called Logan Circle. It's actually really cool. This whole commercial street. Now when I left, it had restaurants, bars, stores, like just a total hub of activity. Again, like this historic building, this beautiful place. And it had changed so much in the time I was there. When I was first there, it was considered unsafe. You wouldn't go there. Then they opened a Whole Foods in the neighborhood, and that started the rejuvenation of it. They used to have lots of prostitutes over there. That was what it was famous for. And so the prostitutes were gone. The gays started moving in, renovating the homes, making the neighborhood better. It became safe for the most part. I had never heard of a shooting going on over there by the time I left. That was not a thing. And so, but after I left, it just seems like the whole place just regressed into this horrible, crime-ridden place. And so this drive-by shooting was a big deal because when you went there, there'd be tons of people sitting outside in front of restaurants, eating, drinking, having a good time. Imagine that, because you've gotten used to this being a safe neighborhood, and someone drives by and does a drive-by shooting. This is one example of the type of crime that's been happening there. Now, here's another kind of example, because I don't know where that went. Hold on. Oh, here you go. Can you see that? Nope. Let me show you this one. Oh, I guess. Sorry. There's a faster way I could have done this. I didn't realize that. So then this is for those of you listening, there's a photo up, and it says it's someone's car, and they have a sign saying, "There is nothing of value in this car, only restaurant supplies and broken dreams." Well, restaurant supplies might be valuable. Please don't break the windows for the 5th time. That's bad, right? That's bad crime. And I also think, on top of just this general crime, violence, I think DC has the highest murder rate in the country now. It's also, if you're a conservative, it's unsafe. They were allowing liberals to go and attack conservatives, to brutalize them and stuff, different types of violence against them. Every time there'd be any sort of conservative rally in DC, you would hear reports from conservatives who have been attacked visiting our capital city. This capital belongs to everybody. And it's a federal city that is supposed to be controlled by the federal government. So I'm glad President Trump took over DC, because hopefully he can fix the problems there. Let's see, here's Ann Coulter. Here's a fun one, also on the crime in DC. So this person told the Washington Post anonymously, "This is a safe city," because the response of DC officials has been like, "Oh, our crime is very low. Our violent crime is super low. It's super safe in DC." But then you talk to residents, and I don't think that's true at all. So this one, the person says, "This is a safe city," and then the person, but then the paper says, "Speaking on the condition of anonymity over concerns of personal safety." So they can't even say that it's the person's afraid for their safety in the city. And Ann Coulter tweeted it and said, "Resident tells the Washington Post that DC is a safe city except for all the crime." Okay. So Trump made his announcement today that the federal government is going to take over DC and fix the problems. Almost immediately, there is a protest. And what I found remarkable about this, if you're able,
You can have it, Trump. DC is our home. You can have it, Trump.
God, that's horrible. But I wanted to show you this because that's a horrible song. I feel like usually they're a little bit more catchy than that. But if you look, most of the people are white.
It's our home, so it's our home. From here on out. All right, the songwriting live.
Okay. So it's like DC is about 50% black. It might be a little bit more than that. And so it's like basically 100% white, wealthy white liberals who immediately were out protesting. Essentially, they want crime. That's what this is. They like the crime. They think if you try to fight the crime as you're being racist towards minorities, which I don't think is true. Because when I lived in that neighborhood, Bloomingdale, I used to walk everywhere, and I'd walk through some pretty, I'll call them shady areas. I don't really think that if you went and talked to black people who live there, like some of the neighborhoods I walked through were more black people than white people. But when you talk to regular everyday people of any race that live in those types of neighborhoods, they don't tell you that we want crime. They also want the crime to be reduced. It's not good. No one wants crime unless you're a wealthy white liberal. I think, unfortunately, a lot of them either have mental illness issues or just can't think logically. Or there's a racism piece of this. They actually think that minorities are okay with crime in their neighborhoods, or they're okay with their family members committing crimes. But I don't think there's anybody that thinks that. You don't want crime. And actually, zero crime policies also help these youth make better decisions. Because if you think that I can go and rob people and there's going to be no ramifications for it, you're more likely to go and rob people because there's no ramifications for it. Instead of spending your time in school, studying, trying to learn the basics, and then going on to be able to, I would say, go into a trade, go to school, college, become a professional, whatever your path is. But you would be more focused on that than the crime piece if you thought crime wasn't an option. But I think we've made it, like a lot of these places have made us a crime is a viable option now. Okay, so that's my piece about Trump. I think we should be very thankful that he did this. So hopefully the end result will be DC becomes much safer. And I think he was talking about the idea of going and doing this to some of our other big cities like New York, Chicago. I mean, I don't, if there's legal authority, because I think, and I think he might have it depending on what the situation is. He has specific legal authority under the DC Home Rule Act to invoke an emergency situation, which this crime is, and then to go and fix it. And I will say this, DC's elected officials are as lefty as you can get. I mean, it's crazy. Just they might put Salt Lake City to shame, because at least here they have to be performative towards the Republican legislature and governor, to the extent the governor is Republican. I'm not really sure he is, but they actually have to like kind of put on airs like, oh, okay, we're gonna fight the crime, guys. We've let the crime get out of control, but don't worry, we're now going to fight it. DC doesn't have to do that, and so they let everything run amok. They've destroyed a lot of what was improved, which is sad, because my point about 14th Street, and I lived in Columbia Heights for a while. This is a neighborhood that there's like this huge piece of land because it had been burned down during the 60s riots. And then they built a Target and a bunch of other stores there, and it completely revitalized the neighborhood. And it made it a really nice place to live. It still had some crime issues, but a huge improvement. But all of that stuff has regressed because of bad governance. And it's really unfortunate because, like I said, it's a beautiful city. It's our capital city. It should be safe to go to the Capitol for anybody to be able to participate in our democracy, go, testify before Congress, walk around, see the monuments, see the museums, all the cultural stuff that, celebrates our nation. I just think, I'm just hoping he fixes it. This will be great. Okay, let's see what else I have today. I feel like I don't have much else. Riverton mayor race. We already talked about. Okay, here's I think my last point for today. I did want to say thank you. I did get a volunteer to help me with doing grandma requests, and that'll be really helpful. If there's anyone else that wants to help out, I would love the help, because I only have so much time to do this stuff. But I need to do grandma requests so we can get more information, then we can report it on here. It's useful, I think, I assume it's useful for people if we can break some news. Here is, let's look at this. I did get some interesting information. So let me show you this. Okay. So Carlos Moreno is a member of the Salt Lake County Council, and he represents, I think it's District 2. It's pretty close to me. It's like South Jordan, West Jordan, kind of goes up on the west side of Salt Lake County. And if you look, this woman Carmelita Canales asked Carlos, I didn't even realize. Oh, there's comments in here. Oh, we'll read the comments in a minute. I didn't even realize. I'm so sorry. I feel bad. Okay. We were having a debate with Carlos because I pointed out that Carlos posts in Spanish a lot. And so if you get upset about Ilhan Omar, the Somalian refugee that came here and still talks in Somalian when she runs for office, has said that Somalia, she's all sorts of offensive things. I mean, that Somalis get elected here so they can help their homeland of Somalia. One of the big ones that's offensive is she said 9/11 was some people did something. I was like, okay, I can't do it. Can't do it. But, similarly, we have a local official also kind of posting in Spanish, doing a lot of lobbying on behalf of Venezuela. And I think that's also a problem. And he's a Republican, and he's a golden child. And so a lot of our local Republicans are giving him a free pass on things that I find inappropriate. In fact, he had a post where he only posted it in Spanish, where he was meeting with Senator Curtis in 2021 to talk to him about the migration crisis of Venezuelans at the southern border. He responded to me by saying, "Were you at this meeting? Do you know what was said?" I can assume what was said. I think that he said that they should all be able to come in because they're refugees right? They voted for communism in their home country. It didn't work out. Now they want to be here. But you know, but no matter how many times I ask him the question, he won't say what he said. So I'm going to say, I think I'm right. He's not going to say it because I'm right. I know what he said. He told them to let them all in. Now, Carmelita asked him, hey, Carlos, what about if you explain to your constituents why you decided to vote yes on the sale of one of the most valuable pieces of land in Salt Lake County? You sided with the Democrat and corrupted mayor, and you and all the council did this behind closed doors. Where are your values? Where is your honor? Is this the way that you show love to this country, to Utah? So he has not responded to that. So I quote tweeted it and I said, it's been a week and Carlos Moreno still has not answered this question about his vote to sell one of the most valuable parcels of land in Salt Lake County to Ryan Smith. How much longer does he need to explain his vote? So, and what I want to tell you is this. I learned that I guess Carlos was actually against this land sale, but he voted for it because he was afraid that he was told that if he voted against it, he would have no more political capital left and the council would not vote with him on things. And to me, if you are principled and you believe that certain things should happen, you should be voting with your principles and continuing with that. In this case, even if he had voted no, it would have passed anyway. But it would have made the point that there's actually some opposition to Ryan Smith's whole project going forward and for the taxpayer subsidies that are going toward it. And I just think, to me, it's not surprising because, like I've said, for all of this talk of Carlos being super brave and he's going to help us fight communism, he didn't do it in his home country. He ran away. Now he'll say things like, I have 4 degrees, but I don't know what the point of that is if you weren't even willing to use it to fight in your own country. You came here, you left it, you abandoned your home country. You know, and for me, I was born here. Like there is nothing that would make me leave. Nothing. You could not do anything to me that would make me think I want to go to another country. I'm going to leave my country. I would stay and fight. And if it led, you know, I think under Biden, we basically were under a dictatorship. If it led to me being killed by someone in my government, so be it. At least I tried to change things and make it better. So I'm not surprised by the way that he voted and the reason he did it, because that's number one, that's normal politics, but I don't think he actually has the ability to stand up to that. There is no example of him standing up to anything that would be controversial or difficult. So I would not expect it here, and I'll never expect it in any situation. Okay, let's read through the comments for the last few minutes here. So we got disagree butter, so let's go. I think that's probably at the beginning of the show. Oh, that was a good question. You know, he said, ask her and any politician who calls in if she's ever changed laws to benefit a family member. You know, that is a question we will ask going forward. I like that a lot. It's a great point. So then we have Tracy. Well, Tawny doesn't understand bonds. If you pay them off early, it doesn't save any money. You still have to pay the entire interest. The investor just gets their money faster. And, you know, so she called in and said that. I assume that's, maybe it's correct. Maybe I don't know. I didn't know that before. Maybe that's what I should say. So that's interesting. And what I think is really interesting is that it kind of, because when somebody says they're going to pay off the bonds, to me that sounds great. Like if we could be a debt-free city, that's great, right? That's fantastic news. But then if what Tracy's saying is true, we have to kind of think about, would there be other ways to use that tax money that might be better? So maybe that's the question, unless the bond interest is really high and there is benefits to paying it off. But if what she's saying is true, that may not make a difference. So I don't know. Then she said, ask her why her husband tried to change acre to multifamily. Would she tell him no? Maybe that's a good question for a potential debate in the future. But it's a good question. Disagree Butter says a Goud hosted debate would be glorious. I would love to host a debate. I'm not taking any positions in the race because I want to be neutral and give everybody a fair shot. And then hopefully I could actually host a debate because I think that'd be really fun. And they're both, you know, to be fair to them, they're both great candidates, right? Oh, thank you, Elo. All right, then this says, tell Tish to join X. She has no presence on the #1 political app. I will pass it along. I'll send her a text message because Tawny's actually on X, but I noticed Tish is not. Oh my God. So then he says, ask, I think this was Tish because she was talking about managing a facility in a LabCorp facility in Denver. So he said, ask what went wrong in Denver. She was there when it started to turn south. Ugh. Well, but she also said that she's only lived in Riverton her whole life. So I don't know if she actually physically ever lived in Denver or if she was just working here and doing it, managing it remotely. I did like this. Holy smokes, a politician who admits mistakes and changes her mind when given facts. Wow. Thumbs up. Yeah, that was a great, Tish actually talked about a vote she had and how it was a mistake. And so that's very rare. You don't hear politicians admit that a lot when your position has been wrong in the past. Yeah, I appreciate that too. So, it's nice when people will actually say, okay, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. You guys proved me wrong. I've learned my lesson, and hopefully you learn from it, and then going forward, you kind of change how you operate based on that. So Tracy says, yes, Tish will be a great mayor because she will listen. I love that she is so honest and transparent. Okay, well, those are good comments, and obviously we'll have them back maybe in the future at some point, and hopefully I would love to moderate a debate. Can you imagine how fun that would be? And we've had. I feel like I've talked about this before. In Utah, people don't like the word debate. They don't like the concept of debating. It feels contentious. But we have a great model for debates. We had the debate in 2024 between Mike Carey and Rochelle Morris. And I went to that debate. I thought it was phenomenal. It was very based on the issues. You could tell the differences between the two candidates. They had different styles on how they approach things. They were both very smart. It was very fun, very informative, and I didn't find it contentious at all. They were just kind of, and maybe you might challenge a candidate, right? So somebody said to ask, let me see here. Like Tracy wants to ask why, I think it's Tawny's husband tried to change acre lot to multifamily. Would she tell him no? So, that's a good question to ask her. It'll be a little bit of a challenging question. And so it'll be interesting to see how she responds, but I don't think that's contentious. I think we're just trying to get at what kind of a mayor would you be? Because this is an issue that people have been talking about, that your husband is also in elected office. And so how do you deal with those power dynamics? And so I don't think debates are necessarily contentious. They're supposed to be informative to voters. It'll take a little bit of a cultural change in Utah, I think, before people start to get past this idea of things being contentious. And I've told you before, when I ran for state house, hold on. When I ran for county council and I challenged Lanny Chapman to a debate, she wouldn't do it. Under no sort, she refused. She kept on making all these excuses. I'm really busy running the election system. Yeah, but you're running for office, right? Maybe you shouldn't be running the election system when you're running for office. And so if you're going to run for clerk this year, that's probably an issue you should bring up, is the conflict of interest when the person running for election is also running the election. Maybe bring it up early and also challenge her to debates early, because what you'll find is she's actually not a good public speaker. And that's why she shies away from any sort of situation where she has to get out of controlled environments where there could be extemporaneous, I think that's how you say it, speaking. So that would be my advice if you're going to run for clerk. Although I don't even think you'll have Republican support, to be honest with you, because a lot of the establishment Republicans support Lanny. But debates don't have to be contentious. So Lanny wouldn't debate. When I ran for the state house, Doug Fiafia, it was the same thing. The guy just would not debate. And so I kept on pushing it, we should debate. And then one time he actually texted me and said, Goud, this is something you're making up. Nobody wants to see a debate between us. You just put that idea into their head. And so now they asked me about it. And I was like, isn't that the job of candidates, is to give people insights, ideas, things that we should be doing? I think you should have debates for every office. I got an email from this woman, Sylvia, I think her name was, she used to be an elected official. That's the only reason why I would mention it. But she was, I think, in the state house. And she emailed me and said, it was like, let me see if I can find it. It was just, I was flabbergasted. I know I've mentioned this before, but I've also heard you have to mention stuff 3 times before people remember it. So I'm going to mention it again because I feel like it. Let's see. Maybe this is the one. Oh, here. Okay, suicide. She called it negative campaign. She said, Goud, I read your email, and I have to say, as a former legislator, I am disappointed you decided to go toward negative campaigning. Asking for debates now is negative campaigning. I don't know of a single delegate that has moved in the direction you are hoping for with this negative campaigning. I guess someone must have given her this email to send. I am not interested in hearing what current legislators are not doing, not what other candidates are not doing. I am only interested in what positive things you will plan to do. Just a suggestion. Like, Tyler, this person's ridiculous. I can't believe people elected her to office, right? Like someone asked for debates and that's now negative campaigning. You should be telling the other guy or girl, put your pants on and get your butt to the debate and be a man, right? Or a woman. But get some cojones, get in the debate and do it. And if you can't do it, if someone challenges someone to a debate and they won't do it, you should not vote for that person. Be done with it. That's useless. They're not going to be able to pass any bills because they can't debate. You have to be able to debate to be able to test your ideas and also to be able to convince other people to vote with you. Otherwise, all you get is votes that Republicans will support. And that's what Doug Fiafia, that's all you're going to get. You're not going to get anything more creative. Monica Wilbur says, why are no Republican organizations asking for Adams' resignation? That's a good question. It's a very good question. That's kind of what I was wondering. It seems like the Republican Party is being very tribal. And I think there's some danger to that because if this story turns further south, then you're now caught having supported somebody who did things that you probably would not have supported had you known the full story. And I'm saying that because I've heard something. And so I think the story could turn very badly south. And a lot of those people who were being all defensive of Stuart Adams are probably going to regret it. So, hey, that's how it goes. Okay. Disagree better says, good question, Monica. That is a good question. If you notice too, the only people I've actually Republican-wise saying that he should resign are like grassroots people. I've heard grassroots people say it. I haven't heard any of these establishment people say it. And like I said, I've seen a lot of these posts actually coming out in hot defense of what Stuart Adams did, including like I said, the personal getting a law passed to benefit your family. You can say it wasn't retroactive, okay, but it was used in the court to actually get your family member a lessened sentence. So it clearly did become an issue in their conviction, right? And so I think it's hard to argue now that it had no influence on his niece's prosecution. Okay, well, we're close enough to time. Thank you all for listening to the Goud Crowd this week. We will be back next week. In the meantime, if you have any tips or information that you want me to look into, feel free to message me. My DMs are always open. I think most of you guys have my personal phone number. You're free to text me or email me. And, I said DM already, right? Yeah. Because, this show is really about you. So if you have ideas, you have things that you think I should look into, feel free to send them over. I'm happy to do that. And maybe I should read where we're on. Thank you for supporting us at KMMU. I would appreciate if you would like the show, because that means that it'll get a little bit more, viral, and then more people will watch it, which is helpful. And you've been listening to the Goud Crowd on KMMU Main Street Media, Utah. And so we are live every Monday from 5 to 7 p.m. on X, Rumble, and YouTube. So you can search KMMU on your favorite platform. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.